For those of you who haven't heard, there is a new law that passed in New York. I think all of New York, by Andrew Cuomo. It's talked about in Newsweek. Newsweek addresses it with this article, "New law could open floodgates on decades of child sexual abuse within Jehovah's Witnesses." It says, "It can take years, even decades, for victims of child sexual abuse to gather the strength to go to authorities. By then, the statute of limitations may have run out, leaving them with no legal recourse. But a law going into effect in New York today could open the door to a deluge of new abuse lawsuits. Signed earlier this year, the Child Victims Act, CVA, temporarily lifts the statute of limitations for civil suits alleging abuse, regardless of the age of the plaintiff or how long the abuse allegedly occurred, or how long ago the abuse allegedly occurred. While the window, quote-unquote, the CVA opens expires after 1 year, legal experts expect thousands of lawsuits to be filed in the coming months." This could not have been better news in the fight against Jehovah's Witnesses. Because for one thing, Jehovah's Witnesses are in New York, like their headquarters are in New York. And this specifically addresses civil lawsuits, not criminal charges. So there's that. You can't really go after somebody for criminal charges, but at least you can go after the corporations for gross neglect, gross mishandling. And guess what? Jehovah's Witnesses, or ex-Jehovah's Witnesses more accurately, are going nuts over this. It's really, really good news. 2 such lawsuits are targeting the governing body of the Jehovah's Witnesses, the ruling council for the faith that formulates doctrine and manages worldwide operations. In separate filings, Heather Steele and Michael Ewing, both named the 8 members of the governing body as defendants. Steele, 48, says her first memories are of being molested by an elder, Donald Nicholson, in the mid-1970s when her family lived in New York. At age 10, she finally told her mother, who went to the elders instead of the police, which they're instructed to do. They're instructed to go to the elders instead of the police because they want to stay separate from the world, quote unquote. They want to basically run their own government. That's kind of the goal with Jehovah's Witnesses. They have their own government structure set up. On the local level, you've got the elders who do shepherding calls to check in on people. They're kind of the peacekeepers or kind of like the police. They do investigations, they ask questions, they do trials in the form of judicial committees and things like that. Really, originally, excommunication started because these cities were entirely made up of, say, Catholics, for example. Like the store owners, the cashiers, the everybody's were all Catholic. The idea behind excommunication was you wouldn't be able to go to a store and buy what you needed anymore. You wouldn't be able to buy anything or make any deals with anybody. The hope is that you just wander off into the woods and die because nobody would rent a house to you. Nobody would sell a horse to you. Nobody would sell you food, would do anything for you. So the hope is that you'd leave their city, at the very least. And Jehovah's Witnesses, interestingly enough, I think in 1947, actually called excommunication a pagan practice with pagan roots in one of their watchtowers, which is now considered apostate material, funny enough. An article produced by the Watchtower Society is now considered apostate material. Now they practice that. Now they're all about it. Now they want to completely separate everybody from everything. They want to have their own government set up. And they don't want anybody going to the outside government. They don't want anyone going to the world. So if there is some kind of an abuse case or something, they want the elders to handle it. And the elders will instruct people to call the police if they think it's necessary. And when they think it's necessary is when there are 2 victims. Not when there's 1, but when there are 2. Unfortunately, that loophole has set things up in such a way that people can take advantage of it and abuse and abuse and abuse and never get caught. And the Watchtower Society is sitting on a giant cache of names of people who have been reported but have only 1 victim came forward, for example, and then they moved to a new congregation and they never said a word about it. So, I don't know. It's a big complicated mess. I'm just hoping that this lawsuit forces Jehovah's Witnesses' hand. But honestly, if their hearts aren't in it, if they don't want to change and do the right thing, they're going to find ways around it. They're going to find ways to fight the system any way they can. And they're going to blame the world, quote unquote, for forcing them to do the right thing. Oh, quick side note here. You notice how different this article is from USA Today's article about how great Jehovah's Witnesses are. This is a complete contrast. So the article goes on to say, it was basically them trying to convince us it was in our minds, that none of this stuff actually happened, or that we just had bad dreams, Steele told the New York Post. The elders told us that we should pray for Nicholson, which is the abuser. Eventually, Steele's parents notified secular authorities, and Nicholson served 3.5 years in prison. When he got out, though, he was quietly moved to another congregation where few knew of his past. That happens. Because in Jehovah's Witnesses' eyes, it didn't happen because there was only one victim. If there's only one victim, then they assume that it didn't happen. They write the guy's name. Down. They wait for a second victim to come forward, and if that never happens, then it never happens. The reason is because the Bible talks about this civil rule. Like if you're signing a contract or something, you need 2 witnesses there to witness the contract signing. Or if there's some kind of a dispute over a tractor or over land or something. That's the type of thing that the Bible was talking about with the 2-witness rule. Not tractors, but like goats and stuff. Whatever the hell they sold back then. So the Bible talks about the 2-witness rule in that context. Doesn't talk about it in a criminal context. Jehovah's Witnesses have twisted it around to be in a criminal context. We're not talking about child abuse in Bible times. They were talking about just civil issues. Child abuse is not a civil issue. So that's the deal with this. That's why they quietly moved him to another congregation. That's how they justified it to themselves. Ewing was 14 when he was paired with a ministerial servant, equivalent to a deacon, basically, to work as pioneers, quote unquote, going door to door to proselytize. I think pioneers back then probably got 70 hours a month of door knocking. Over the next 4 years, he says, the older man raped him repeatedly, everywhere from Virginia to New York, where his case is being filed. At 21, Ewing reported the abuse to his father, who, like Steele's mother, went to church elders. At a religious tribunal, both he and his abuser were accused of engaging in homosexual activity and disfellowshipped, a severe form of excommunication where family and community cut all ties. While public attention has focused on clergy abuse within the Catholic Church, a serious problem of child abuse within the Jehovah's Witnesses has also emerged, attorney Erwin Zalkin, who is representing Steele and Ewing, said in a press briefing. That's very true. In a statement to Newsweek, the U.S. branch Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses said it would not address the cases out of respect for the judicial process and the privacy of those involved. Oh, I bet. Yeah, I bet. That's 100% it. Our stand on the subject, quote unquote, I think this is Jehovah's Witnesses. Our stand on the subject of child abuse is very clear. We abhor child abuse in any form, it added. Over the years, Watchtower's publications have addressed this topic with a view to equipping parents to protect their children. In addition, Watchtower's practice is to always follow the law, and we support the efforts of elders and congregations of Jehovah's Witnesses to do the same. They are telling the truth about the fact that they have addressed child abuse in their publications. That's true. They discourage child abuse. They think it's wrong. But they think that the Bible is more right than child abuse is wrong, basically. They think that they should be following biblical standards, and that's the best way of living no matter what, period. Whether it's objectively causing harm to people or not. And it is. The 2-witness rule is allowing them, the combination of the 2-witness rule and their reluctance to get involved in the outside world, where they don't want their people to call the police or anything. Those are the 2 things that are really causing the issue here. The governing body members do not approve of child abuse. They just want to follow biblical standards more than they want to protect kids. That's all. That's what it is. And that's just straight up wrong. I'm sorry. They deserve to be sued. They deserve to be sued until they don't exist anymore, as far as I'm concerned. I hope these people take them for every penny that they have so that the corporation has no choice but to close their doors. I've talked to Heaven's Gate members, like active Heaven's Gate members before. They're still around. They committed mass suicide, 39 people dead, in 1996. I think March 26th, the night of March 26th, I believe, 1996. But 2 of them survived. At least 2. One of them was left behind to manage their properties and assets and so on. The other actually left the group before because he didn't feel worthy enough to be part of it. And then they committed the suicide And then he came back afterward and met up with the one remaining guy and was like, it was all true. I know it was true. Really nice guy, actually. They're both really, really nice. Although they're copyright trolls, so I'll say that. But yeah, I've talked to both of them at length before, through email and Facebook and stuff. They copyright strike everything that I ever put out about it. But like I said, they're kind. Anyways, the point is that Heaven's Gate members still exist. Jehovah's Witnesses, whether the corporation dies out or not, will always exist. There will always be Jehovah's Witnesses. There will always be Mormons. It's going to take 1,000 years of culture change to work that out of our system. Even if the corporations die out, there will always be those around who still believe it. And then in 2,000 years, somebody will make up a new religion about it. They'll say, did you hear about this guy 2,000 years ago? Supposedly he healed a bird. Supposedly he brought it back to life. Supposedly people saw blood dripping from his palms when he stood in front of the sun. They'll just make shit up about it. That's how it works. That's humanity. That's how humanity works. So that's kind of what we have to expect. Anyway, the point behind this whole article is that Newsweek is covering this article. Really glad to see that. USA Today sucks, and Jehovah's Witnesses are screwed. They're in bad shape from, what's his name? Andrew Cuomo, I think. The guy who signed this law, the Child Victims Act. They're in bad shape because of the Child Victims Act right now. So glad to see that.